All right, everybody, welcome back to the Kleen-Rite Radio podcast. I'm Fix It with Phil, and as always, I'm joined with my good buddy, Marc Tyndale, and today is all about the art and science of vending, turning that dusty glass front box into a high-margin impulse buying machine. So whether you're using a spiral vendor or the Laurel vendors that we love here, we're going to guide you on how to make that into a high profitable retail center.
This sounds like it's going to help people today.
The goal is always to help people today, right? So, Marc, let's start with how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great day. The sun's out. It's a great topic. We've needed to talk about it. We've kind of talked around it a little bit, but today we're going to do it.
We're going to dive into it. The biggest, so the big three talking points for today are going to be placement, price, and product selection, right? And before we dive into those three, I think one of the biggest things is the psychology behind the impulse buy, right? What is an impulse buy? Does everybody out there know what an impulse buy is, right? What is an impulse buy?
Well, for an impulse buy, what's the number one important thing of the P's that you said? It's an impulse placement. So knowing placement sometimes will overcome price.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So for everybody out there, an impulse buy is when somebody sees something and they immediately want it and purchase it right then and there, right? If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, on YouTube, all these things, right? They're pushing you ads and you're clicking through that ad. That, in fact, is an impulse buy.
Yep.
If you hit the checkout now button.
And as adults, most of us, if we're getting birthday presents anymore, we're getting stuff from the end cap because one of our loved ones was standing in line. They're like, add an end cap, add a checkout. And they're like, that's the perfect.
This will be the perfect thing. And they need it right now. right? That is an impulse buy. And, we are trying to trigger that natural reaction. And that's where placement is key.
Yeah.
Right. So let's dive into placement of vendors.
Okay.
If your vendors are still where they were 20 years ago when the wash was built, or 30 years ago when the wash was built, we're probably missing the mark at this point because your customers are traveling your site very differently than they did before, right? So let's kind of break that down a little bit of why that is, though.
Right. So without being able to look at everyone's sites, it's going to take a little bit of time and effort from the owner to really study what we call the traffic, heavily traveled areas.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that's going to be spending some time at your own site. Some of it might include talking to your customers to maybe figure out what their impulses are. So a lot of it is going to take some investigation and also some common sense.
Yeah, right. So not everybody's traveling to the vendor anymore. I'm sorry, not to the vendor. The goal is the vendor, right? But not everybody's traveling to that changer anymore. We got a lot of people using credit. If you don't have credit yet, we need to get there really, really quick, right? We have a lot of people using bills. So if all of your vendors are stacked next to your changer, and let's say 70% of your customers aren't going to the changer anymore, you're losing that impulse buy. And
impulse buys need to be easy, right? So if you have to slug 8 quarters into a vendor, that's not easy.
No.
The tap, whether it's a spiral or a drop shelf, guys, you got to have taps on because they can use their phone or they can use a credit card. Even swipers now are becoming, you still want to have them in certain locations, but the data shows that 70-80% of the people that are using credit are tapping.
Yes.
So we have to tie that into the
placement.
Into the placement.
To me,
placement of your taps.
Right. The placement of the machine, the tap being on that machine, that all creates that impulse buy. And that's how we can take it from being a low revenue center to a higher revenue center really, really quickly, right? Getting them in the right place, strategically placed on your site. And like Marc said, right, you need to do a SWOT analysis of a day on your site, a busy day on your site, and you watch customers interact with your site. And what we're saying by that is, What is their traffic pattern? Are they pulling straight into the bay and then leaving right away? Are they pulling into the bay and then going right to a vacuum and leaving? Are they walking across the front, side, back of the building? These things are going to tell you where to place those vendors at and how to drive impulse.
And depending on where your vacuums are, I have some sites where they will vacuum first if I have vac rows. So knowing whether they vac first or vac last has a lot to do with the vending placement.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you're bringing that up, because most people consider that customers are going to wash and then vacuum, right? But there are sites that are laid out for the opposite flow through, and it's all about how your site is laid out. So there's no guaranteed answer for us to sit here and say, you have to put them here, but we can tell you that if you don't put them in the right place, they're not going to get as much play as they should.
Well, and how many times have you witnessed people just rolling into your site when you're there doing a repair? I was just doing this last week, and it was kind of rainy. People were just pulling in and vacuuming and not washing.
Yeah.
So if you're in that particular site, I want to put my vending where it's super accessible to the vacuums, but not accessible to the self-serve bays that you can see them from everywhere.
And depending on how large your site is, right, as these sites get larger and larger, you might actually have to think about having vending at your vacs and having vending closer to your bays, right?
Absolutely.
You might need to make that investment to get the ROI on vending in a whole, right? And that's something else I think we should really talk about quickly is, when we're talking about vending isn't just ROI on one machine. It should be ROI across all of your vending products on that site.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't know the top selling products, there's ways to find out what they are. I mean, there is data on like the top 5 scent trees that we can help you with. New and improved vending items that, I know that for me, the clip fragrance things do very well. I've tried other things that I've taken out of the mix. So some experimentation is required.
You have to be willing to try new things and take it as a bust if it's a bust. And
it's okay to throw a box of trees out or give them away to a charity or something. I've done that.
Or you just hand them out to your customers as a thank you for being on the lot, right?
Yeah,
there are easy ways to get rid of product that's not moving.
Taking the ones that don't sell and giving them to your customers is great PR.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And this ROI, little bit of possible waste of a bust of a product that you bought can take us right into price, right? So how do we price confidently for these items, but not get to the point that we're pricing ourselves out of an impulse buy, right? The customer should be able to see the machine, clearly know what they're going to buy, have access to that, and then be able to make that impulse purchase without thinking twice about how much they're spending on it. So there's nothing wrong with being confident in what you're charging for that, but you can get yourself to a point where you could steer people away if you're trying to charge too much for it.
I've always found with vending, personally, whether you price it a little low or a little high, even numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because the old style of vending was $1.25, $1.50, $1.75. Now, if $1, $2, $3, $4.
Yep.
It makes it easy on the customer. It makes it easy on your devices. And you can price it if you look at the local, you're competing probably with the local convenience store where they're selling maybe scent trees or something like that. You can look at what they're charging and be very similar and still have good profit.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have it on quarter increments, which makes your life a lot harder.
Yeah. I think comparing yourself to all of those convenience stores, knowing what those numbers are, knowing what you're paying for the product and making a fair amount on that is key to keeping the impulse purchase an impulse purchase instead of a decision purchase.
Yeah, and I think vending machines in general sometimes from the user standpoint can get a little bit of a bad reputation because it got stuck. You see it on every meme on the internet. A guy looking at the product and it's half in
and his candy bar didn't come out yet or whatever.
Yeah, and they're shaking it, right? Yeah. So let's make sure that we're testing our products.
Yep.
Making sure they're in the right spiral or the right drop shelf that they vend every time smoothly. Don't put your heavy bottles like if it's a drop shelf and you wouldn't have a mixed drop shelf, but if it's a spiral, don't put your Armor All cans at the very top where they hit so hard. Yeah. So I try to put that stuff at the bottom, but there is you do have to keep up with it. It's not automatic.
Yeah.
Sometimes depending on who loads the machines, a different guy loads them. There's a trick to making sure every spiral works every time, right?
Yep. Yeah, resetting that motor in the back and making sure that spiral's faced the same way when you load that tray up. Absolutely. All right, so now I want to jump into product selection. Moving beyond single items to curate kits, right? Kits right now is let's be honest, they're hot, they're moving. We're moving a lot of kits. Your site's moving a lot of kits. I'm moving a lot of kits at all of our sites. A lot of our customers are out there moving a lot of kits, right? How do we make that ROI? How do we get a faster return on that investment? Well, it's a higher ticket item, right? How do you get a higher ticket item? You put a bunch of items together.
Kits are fantastic. I'm glad that it's kind of gone that way because the customer feels like they're getting a bundle discount.
A
value.
Yeah.
You're selling more product in one sale and your margin is still a good margin.
Yeah, it's still good
on the kit. And it's a very consistent vend. They're easy to vend. They're packaged well, usually most of the time. So, and the vendors can handle a kit because of the thickness that they vend very easily. So I love kits. I'm a kit guy now. Yeah. And I think people are still going to want to buy single items. So you have to offer that. But if you're not trying kits right now, I think you're definitely missing something that could potentially double your vending sales.
Oh yeah,
and vending sales. Let's be honest. Some people have gotten frustrated with vending. I think that just because vending needs to be relooked at.
Well, I think people being frustrated with vending goes into the list that we're calling out of placement, price, product selection that's being offered, and if you're still I'm probably going to offend people by saying this, but if you're still using all full mech machines, that's probably driving your vending sales down.
I was, my mind really twisted around when I did that California trip and I went to a good customer and they had so many vendors and they're probably one of the biggest vending customers that we have. And for two reasons. One, they have a lot of vendors, but two, every vendor has a clean decal on it. They're placed in the P of placement, right? They're placed near the vacuums. They have multiples. Their decals are clean. They're credit card only. And
they're easy to use. They're placed in the right place. The impulse buy happens. And what happens with the impulse buy, sorry to cut you off, but with that impulse.
No, it's just the first time today. Not the last.
First of many.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But that impulse buy turns into a ritualistic buy.
Yeah.
So, and that's where that kit comes into play with all of those items.
Yeah. Yeah. And people, I used to sell the white, I don't want to put white towels down, but people love the microfibers and, give them a good microfiber.
Yeah.
That's something that, like I keep one that I bought in my truck because I know I can use it over again. There's value in a towel that you don't just throw away after you use it. And I think the towel industry has definitely done well with that. So
yeah, we've done the same. We've removed all of the paper towels. We're at all microfiber towels on all of our sites now as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You were talking something else about let's reel back a little bit about selection, right? So, is there still more room? I think so for the industry to get more selection, more more popular. Like I'm kind of crazy about it when I go to like a Walmart or a gas station. I look at I just did that bus tour, and I see what the tunnel folks are doing, and they're not shying away from vending. They're leaning into it. So I think the self-serve IBA guys need to lean back into it like they did prior.
I'd be curious. I'd ask everybody out there that's listening to this, leave us a comment below and let us know what you think the newest vending item could be, or what a high selling kit could be.
Yeah.
Right?
What are we missing?
Yeah. What in your area?
What are you doing that is so good that you have to tell the world?
Or if it's just an idea that you had, whether you're doing it on your site, you're making a kit yourself, or it's a product that you're sourcing from somewhere else that's selling like crazy on your lot, or if it's a kit you put together, let us know down below. I would be very curious. And what we'll be able to do is see from people across the U.S. where they're located and what is moving for them.
Yeah,
right?
and I still, it's on my project list. We all have project lists. I still am super excited about doing some kit vendors at my pay stations for the IBAs. So you're sitting in line, you're stacked, and you can, while you're on your phone or whatever, you'd look over and there's literally a tap-only kit vendor right next to the pay station. Maybe, some people pay for it, and maybe my top tier club members just get one once a month or something like that. Yeah, get a drop. So I think there's a lot of legs to it. Admittedly, I've fallen down. I haven't done it. I haven't tested it yet, but it's one of those things I feel that probably will do pretty well.
Yeah, I think that could really take off. I mean, we're talking about impulse buying a little bit. If they're sliding up, getting that wash, hey, there's towels and interior cleaners right there. I'm going to do that while I'm sitting in the bay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And depending on the IBA, you have 2 to 5 minutes. You can wipe your dash off. If it's a busy day, you're waiting. If it's not a busy day, you're just going through, and you'll do it when you get home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I look forward to seeing what the feedback is on that. From there, what else do we have?
Well, what else is there, right? We talked about placement, which is key. People are gonna assess their site, maybe, comment to us.
Yeah.
If you have a question, we're okay looking at your pictures. And most of the time when people send me pictures to vending, they're coin operated. You can't read the decals. They're not fresh.
Yeah.
And they're placed on an equipment room wall next to a changer that nobody's using anymore. Sorry.
In that vacant spot away from where everybody's at.
Yeah. And I've also looked at a lot of car washes where the vendors are strategically placed where you have to walk by them to get to something else. Sometimes they're a little out on an island, and they're almost by themselves on an island. But I think a lot of thought can go into putting them on the back islands, putting them at the IBAs. Don't be afraid to try them in a bay.
Put them in the
You
bays.
and I did that. It is working.
Oh, yeah.
It's very consistent. It has not fallen off. Consistently buying new kits, boxes of kit supplies, adding them to other sites as well. I think we've ignored it long enough. It's time to get back, car wash people, to get back into vending as a real profit center rather than I'm just offering it as a convenience for my customers.
Agreed, 100%. So I think that 80% action item for everybody right now is to audit your vending prices against a local convenience store. Do a SWOT analysis, and we always talk about SWOT, but do a SWOT analysis of the traffic that your customers do through your site. Are they going past those vendors? What's your price, and what are you offering?
And I'm going to leave you, we'll probably wrap this one up soon, but I'm going to leave you one other question to ask yourself, right? What do you make in vending? Like, if you asked the typical operator, okay, do you inventory your vending? Do you know what your cost for your vending is? And do you know what your sales are? Because if you ask most 1 site, 2 site, 3 site guys, they're going to say, well, I do a couple of this. And it's usually a broad answer.
Yeah.
They don't say, I do $1,200 a month at that site I'm vending, and it costs me $600 because they don't really know. It's kind of like a little bit of an afterthought, especially if it's cash based. If it's credit based, you can track it. And that's why I like it. That's what I like about credit based is I know what I'm doing in vending. So I can kind of forecast what I need to purchase, to buy a little ahead of time, or maybe take a free freight deal and say, yeah, I know I'll sell that. You know you're going to sell black ice, right? So why not buy more of it?
Yeah. That's a great adder for the end.
Yeah, let's first during your SWAT see if you're even tracking it.
Yeah.
Or you're just buying it when you're like, oh, I'm out of something.
Do you know what you make in vending? And if you don't, are you still complaining that you don't make enough?
Right. At least know what you're making before you complain you're not making enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, that's where we're going to finish off for today. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you could like, comment, and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. And we will catch you on the next one.